Okay, let's talk. How do you walk a reactive dog, a dog that shows aggression towards other dogs, a dog that constantly barks and lounges and pulls towards other dogs? In this video, I will share with you several tips that will help you to have these walks less stressful, less barky, help you to actually somewhat enjoy walking your reactive dog. By the way, if you don't like the long form content, I have a shorter version of this video on my TikTok. I professionally train and walk reactive dogs here in San Francisco Bay Area, so this advice is proven with many dogs I worked with, and I hope it will help you as well. And just to be clear, we're not talking about training this behavior. That's for another video, for another time. We're going to be talking about life hacks that you can implement right now, right today, that's going to make those walks much easier and more pleasant for you. The first advice is, unless you're already doing so, change the time of the day you're taking your dog out. So instead of taking them at 8, wake up at 6 or 5 and take them out at 5. There will be less people, less other dogs on the street, and you will actually enjoy your walk. I understand it might be unfortunate for you if you're not an early bird, then maybe you're better off taking a longer walk at night, 10, 11, 12, if you're the person who stays out longer. So choose the time of the day where you're going to be less likely to see people. If you work from home, pay attention to the hours. Usually like 12 to 1 a.m. It's probably the time when most people are going to have a lunch break. There will be a more busy time. Something between 2 and 3 p.m. is probably going to be less busy. Again, depends on the place where you live, on the area. In case you can't wake up every day at 5, maybe start with several times a week. Let's say 2 times a week you will try to wake up at 5 and take a really nice, long, quality walk with your dog. And then other days you wake up whatever time you wake up, but then you keep your walk shorter. You just do a potty break and then go home. And then maybe in the evening, if you have time, and 9, 10 p.m., then you do a longer walk. The idea is not to be perfect. The idea is not to overstretch yourself. The idea is like to start adding small things to your schedule. If you can only add 1 walk per week at 5 a.m., it's going to be better than what you have now. The second advice, when you want to walk your dog, especially if you want to have a longer walk, choose the worst weather. Usually people not going to walk their dog when it's rainy or when it's, like overcast or it's too cold. And sometimes, especially if you live somewhere like California, there will be one day there will be nice, pleasant weather and everyone will be out and about, and then the next day it's super foggy. So that's your day. So maybe on a nice day, stay home, do some exercises with dogs in the house, just have a short potty break and then bring the dog home and do some funny activities in the house, do some mental enrichment and other stuff. And then when it's a crappy day, take your dog for a longer walk. And if you're like me, you might say like, oh, my dog doesn't like to walk in the rain. I would suggest to invest in a good raincoat. I bought mine from Roughwear, and before my dog would literally refuse to go out when it's raining. So my dog would walk out of the building, look around, see the rain, and immediately pull back inside the house. When I got her a nice poncho that completely covers her so she doesn't get wet, she doesn't get cold, now she can actually enjoy walking. Also me, I got myself a nice raincoat, I got myself a rubber boots, actually matching my dog. Cool experience when me and my dog can wear matching outfits. Usually we don't do things like that. But it's like now like a ritual. So now when the rain starts, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the time for me and my dog to explore the neighborhood because nobody's going to be there bugging us. Okay, let's assume you already tried the time of the day, you try to choose the worst weather. What else can you do? The next big advice is to understand the distance from the other dog that sends your dog into barking and lounging. Trust me, this distance can be established and it's almost always the same. So let's say you have this dog, and depending how far or close they are from each other, this will decide whether this dog will escalate into barking and lounging, or maybe this dog can actually handle seeing this dog. For each dog, it's an individual number. So some dogs, they can see another dog from the 50 feet and stay relatively calm, cut this distance to 30 feet, they're going to start barking. For some dogs, they might not bark when the dog is 50 feet away, 40, 30 feet, 20 feet. But if the dog is in their immediate, private space, let's say 5 feet, 10 feet to them, they're going to start instantly barking. It's a good idea to think of it like a bubble, like a space bubble that your dog needs to be not invaded. So again, we have a doggy A and we have a doggy B. So this dog, you might have this bubble, and this dog, you might have this bubble. So for this dog, they don't care. Like as soon as people stay 5, 10 feet away, they're fine. But this doggy needs 50 feet around them. So imagine you're traveling in a gigantic bubble that has to be clear of other dogs. If you live in a city, the easiest is not to obviously try to figure out the feet or meters, because not everyone has a good visual visual measure, but to judge based on the street. Let's say if my dog is on this side of the street and there is another person walking their dog on the other side of the street, is my dog barking and lounging or not? So if my dog is not barking and lounging at this distance, okay, this is a safe distance for me. That means like I just have to avoid other dogs by crossing the street to the other side. So you have to understand this. If your dog can only handle, and by handling I mean not barking, not lounging at other dogs from across the street, you have to stay all the time across the street. What does it practically mean for you? That means you have to be super vigilant. You have to see the other dog before your dog sees them. You have to make a quick decision before this dog approaches you. Either I turn around and walk away, so I just walk backwards, or I cross the street. Sometimes it's not super obvious to people. For example, okay, let's talk about it. So this is the main road and there are like some side streets. Let's say there is one dog coming from here and you're walking from here. So you actually have many options. If it's a crosswalk, you can cross to this side. If you're unsure what's gonna happen, maybe there is another dog coming from here, then maybe you just turn to this street and just completely leave the area. And if you need to go in this direction, if it's like a city that's made out of blocks, you'll probably have to go this way, turn around, go there, and then, come back to the main street. If this option is not available for you, let's say there is no street like that, you can actually turn around and go back from where you came and then maybe cross the street there. Before you reach this intersection, you have to be very careful. In this case, what I would do, I would probably like stay a little bit away from this intersection, stay with my dog and wait for this person to make decision. Because what if this person goes this way? This is not desirable for us. So I better wait here and see where they go. Or, which is even more safer, as soon as I reach this intersection, I'm actually gonna go here and then I'm gonna wait for this person, what they're doing, if they're going this way, so I let them pass completely while I'm waiting here. Again, while I'm waiting here, it's not a random place. It has to be the same distance that is considered safe for my dog. So the way how it's gonna work for somebody who walks reactive dogs like me, I'm constantly changing directions. I'm constantly super vigilant, crossing to other side of the street. Sometimes I would go in the alleyway to let other dogs pass me, because sometimes you can't quickly cross the street. So you have to make decision. If there is a building, if I can go inside the building and wait there, I will do that. Obviously, it's a little bit risky because if somebody comes out with the dog from this building, then you are cooked. So you have to make these decisions and you have to actually get this skill, because in the very beginning, you're going to be always noticing other dogs and other dog walkers too late, and it's going to be not enough time for you to turn around or to change the direction, go to another street. But the more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. So my next tip is to use a visual barrier. Let's say you have a tiny dog who barks at other dogs. What you need something that's going to block the visual. So there is this dog, there is a fence or maybe a sidewalk or maybe some planter on the sidewalk. So if your dog is behind this planter, they can't see this other dog walking behind, and they're going to be less likely to react. Yeah, they can still hear, and some dogs react to the sound of tags, on jingling of tags or jingling of the equipment. Some dogs obviously can hear the other dog huffing, puffing, barking, whatnot. But very often, if your dog is blocked from seeing other dogs or other triggers, they'll be less likely to bark. So let's say you are on this narrow street and your dog is actually doesn't handle narrow streets very well because they're gonna bark. If it's like a wide street, let's say like a 5-lane road, they're not gonna bark, but if it's a small like little alley, they might bark. So let's say there is a doggy A on here and then there is a doggy B. So this dog is walking this way, you're walking this way. So you know that as soon as you get somewhere here, so you meet, your dog gonna bark because the distance here is longer than the distance like this. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna look what's on your side that's gonna help you. Maybe there is a gigantic planter, tall planter that's taller than your dog. Then you're gonna walk behind this planter and you're gonna stay here and wait for this dog to pass. Maybe there is a car. Okay, I'm not good at drawing, but we'll try. Let's consider this as a car. If you see a car, it's perfect. So you're gonna walk to the car and hide there. So in this case, you can actually hide behind this car and this dog will not see you. I can't stress enough how powerful it is to use visual barrier. Like usually when people hear about it, they're like, it's not gonna work. Trust me. Bushes, trees, planters, cars, sometimes like a live fence, sometimes maybe it's like the building has a weird shape. So whatever you can use it. Another advice is to find different areas to walk your dog. In some cases, you have to drive. So literally, you will have to put your dog in a car and drive somewhere to the quiet area if you live in a busy area. For example, if you live like in the busiest part on San Francisco, somewhere like in Tenderloin, you're probably better off putting your dog in a car if you own a car and driving somewhere else in a quiet area. Again, you don't drive to Dolores Park, you drive to some place like McLaren that doesn't have as many dogs, especially if it's odd hours. or like Buena Vista, they don't have usually many dogs, especially on the odd hours. So you have to find different places. Sometimes it doesn't mean you need to drive somewhere. You just need to go to the next street. For example, I often work with dogs in Ingleside, and there is this one particular area which is super odd. So there are two streets parallel to each other. It's like a neighborhood. One street, I don't know why, there are always dogs there. So if I walk my dog on this neighborhood street, I will constantly, like every couple of minutes, I will see another person walking their dog. But if I go to the street that's parallel to this, so I basically just go 1 block away, there are rarely any dogs, maybe like 1 or 2 dogs per walk. So this is amazing how you can just go 1 block away and it's going to be completely different. The same if you live somewhere in San Francisco, in Valencia, if you live there, and if you walk your dog in Valencia or Mission, you're going to see lots of dogs. But if you go a little bit on towards Guerrero and stuff, there will be less likely any dogs. Usually those areas are less pleasant to walk your dog, so that's why maybe, but sometimes it's worth it. Another way is to embrace the off trail. That's how I call it. So most people obviously would walk the dog in the nicest path, nicest road. Get yourself nice, waterproof, like hiking boots or like rubber boots, whatever, and go off the trail. For example, like in a place where I live, we have an apartment complex and lots of people walk their dogs inside the apartment complex because there is lots of green areas. If you go there with reactive dogs, your dog will be constantly barking. If I need to take the dog that's reactive, I actually go on a little fire lane along the freeway. Obviously, I can't let my dog off leash there, but I don't see the freeway, I only hear it, which is a little bit unpleasant, but at least I know when I'm on this fire lane, I can actually use a long line, my dog is sniffing the grass, both of us, we are enjoying the walk because we're not going to see other dogs. Maybe once in a while we'll meet another smart person like me, but so far I haven't met a single dog there. In terms of driving with your dog somewhere, I understand it's not realistic to do it twice a day, so my next advice, and it's actually controversial for some people, but trust me, I'm a dog trainer. No, but really, so if you feel that you need to walk your dog twice a day, 1 hour each, or like, I don't know, 40 minutes each, and then you go outside, your dog is constantly lounging and barking at other dogs, it's not productive for you, it's not productive for your dog. It's actually very stressful for your dog. So instead, focus on having less walks, but having like a high quality walks when you can do it. Let's say, incorporating all the advice above. Whenever I can wake up early or take them out late, then I will choose and opt for a longer walk, like 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and a half if your dog is very like athletic. And then when I can't do this, like let's say I have to go and walk my dog on the street in a busy time, I will have a shorter 15, maybe maximum 20 minutes walk. So they do their stuff, they go potty, and then we're going to go back inside. And instead of spending 1 hour outside, I will do some enrichment games with my dog inside. The same goes to the, like driving somewhere. Obviously, nobody can drive every day, twice a day to walk their dog in a quiet neighborhood. But if you can do it like twice a week, that's going to be much better. And usually it's only in the beginning. It seems like it's a lot of logistics to do it. But what counterbalance that you're going to have a less stressful walk, as I already said before, and you're going to be thankful for yourself. The amount of energy you and your dog exerting just dealing with the constant barking, when it's transferred in a nice quiet walk, it will be absolutely like day and night for you. So, and also in general, it's a big misconception when people, especially people who live in the city, people who think my dog needs to be walked twice a day. Yes, they need to go potty like several times a day, it depends on their age, but in general, they don't need to spend 1 hour outside. Especially when you're in a busy city, even 15 minutes outside gives your dog enough mental stimulation. If you need physical stimulation, you can do sports with your dog, you can do certain things at home. There are lots of exercise. I think I should do another video about that, how you can actually physically exhaust your dog inside the house. Or you can focus on physically exhausting them during those longer walks, and on a shorter walk, you just keep it very short and sweet. My next advice is actually how to find where to take your dog, where to drive or where to go for a quiet time. Ideally, you need to test different parks in your area, and there is always, especially in San Francisco, it's very odd that there are some parks in the same neighborhood that are super busy with people, and then you go to another park, you will have less likely the same amount of people. This is very odd, so you have to literally open the map and look at every park in your area and go there at different times. Sometimes they even advise maybe leave your dog home when you have time and go drive and check each park and just compare which one is less busy. Obviously, sometimes it's a certain day, the weather will influence, but at least you will get some idea. And it's good to do this test without your dog, so you're not stressed out. You can actually choose the best place and then bring your dog after. Another advice, like for example, how do I find this fire lane along the freeway, where I can actually take my dog? I open a Google map, I open a satellite view, and I look for green areas, and then I park in a neighborhood and walk there. Sometimes some places, especially here in Bay Area, they're not marked as a park, but you can always park in some cul-de-sac, and there will be like a little trail leading towards the green area, and there will be some park or some fire lane green and stuff like this. There are lots of places like that you would not even find unless you actually looked at the map and like, oh wow, let me check this. Also sometimes, for example, like where I live, there is one particular park. It's not very large. It has like a small playground, and it has like a, I don't know, not a super huge but fenced green area adjacent to the playground. And every time I go there around 2-3 p.m., I never see people there. So what you can do, you can figure out those places. You can figure out what time they're empty. Definitely if you go there at 6 a.m. it's going to be empty, or 10 p.m. Other places like that can be, I don't know, maybe it's a high school during the summer break, or it can be a high school or other school like after hours. Sometimes it can be a tennis court or a basketball court that is fenced, so you can bring your dog. Few things obviously to consider. Some of these places might not allow dogs, so you have to be careful or use this on your discretion. Definitely take your dog potty before you go there, because you don't want your dog to pee or poop there. I usually have like a small walk outside, make sure my dog did everything, and then I bring my dog inside. Some of these places can be abandoned. For example, recently I found this abandoned tennis court. Nobody's using it, so the asphalt is already cracked. There is like a very old net that definitely nobody's using it. So this place is more safe for me to take my dog because I never see people there. Let me give you a few more advices where you can actually take your dog, and even like during the normal hours where you're less likely going to see other dogs. This can be places like where people don't usually take their dogs, for example, hospitals. I don't tell you to go inside the hospital, but some huge hospitals can have a little park outside, or like a little area outside, like a green area, so you can take your dog there. You can take your dog to some parking lots. Let's say it's a parking lot in front of your supermarket. There will be less likely people with dogs there. Or if you go there after hours, if it's like a shopping mall or something, in the after hours, there will be like no people there, so you'll be perfect for you. I already mentioned the school grounds in the off season or off hours. Other places that sometimes can be helpful. For example, here in San Francisco, I used to take dogs to the places where there are offices. So there is a huge like a campus where there are only offices and less likely there are dogs there. Obviously some companies allow to bring dogs, but most of the time if you go there, you're not going to see lots of dogs, maybe one. Again, some of these office spaces, they have some green area around, like some benches, some trees and stuff like that, so you can actually take your dog for a little adventure there. Other places, like if you have some museum with the green area in front, you can take your dog there. Hotels have like a green area, so whatever has like a green park or green area in front or around them. And if you think like, yeah, people usually don't go with dogs there, that's going to be your spot from now on. You can technically even go to the airport area if they have some nice green like areas in there. Some people actually go with dogs to cemeteries. I understand that for some people it might be like maybe disrespectful or something, but if you don't feel anything about it, or if you can find some old like semi-abandoned cemetery in your city, that's going to be a good idea. But if you go there, especially like, if you're respectful, let's say you take your dog potty before you enter the cemetery and then you just walk around, especially if it's green. Usually it's very quiet, so your dog not going to be triggered by other things. This is also a good option for you. Let's say if you have only cemeteries and nothing else in your area. 2 more ideas where to take your dog. Take your dog to the state park that doesn't, or like any national park that doesn't allow dogs. I understand you're like probably like, Stella, are you crazy? So I'm not saying you should take your dog to trails that don't allow dogs, but let me give you an example. Here in Bay Area, we have Point Reyes Park, and they don't allow dogs in most of them places, but what they allow, you can actually take a dog on a short trail, like around parking lot, or there is always like a small, not very like deep in the woods, but like a small green trail around, or next to the parking lot where dogs are still allowed. So you can actually drive there and have a short hike around this area. Not all parks would have it, but some actually do, especially larger park, probably like a larger national and state park. So that's another way. So you can experience a little bit of a state or national park without seeing other dogs. And last but not least, there are stores where dogs are allowed. I'm not talking about pet shops, because you definitely don't want to go to the pet store if your dog is reactive, but there are other stores, and I have an article on my website with the list of all the stores here in America that allow dogs. I will link the article down below. So these are examples like Home Depot, Love's, Barnes & Noble, Marshall, Ross, what other stores? Joann's, Sport Basement, Dick's, Nordstrom Rack. There are actually lots of stores that you would not expect, but you can bring your dogs. And that's a great place for your dog to have like a little adventure and get lots of mental stimulation that will tire them out, if that's your goal. But obviously you have to judge your dog behavior. If you don't have other behavior issues, like let's say they're reactive to people, they are afraid of new places, they have some type of neophobia, or they may be triggered by certain sounds or certain smells, lights, whatnot, that's another story. But if you feel like your dog will be fine, let's say you're already taking your dog to the restaurant and you know, like in general they're okay unless there is another dog there, then that's a great adventure. Yeah, so to summarize this video, change the time of the day, go early or super late, then choose the worst weather. If it's a good day, better stay inside the house, do something else. Then remember the distance. You literally need to learn to play the game, how to avoid other dogs, use direction change, cross to the other side, hide behind some visual barriers, behind cars, behind fences. And if you want to save this advice in an article form, I have an article on my website. You can save it, and if you need to go back to this advice, it's going to be there. Obviously, ideally you want to do some training, but that's for another video, for another story.